Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to the ADHD Roundtable, where we have an open roundtable discussion about ADHD to bring normalcy to neurodiversity while engaging in deep conversations and having fun. And if you have been along for the ride of the different episodes, you will notice that we have more people this time than we normally do. And I'm so excited about that because we have some badass people here today. And you'll get to know them pretty quickly with some of the questions that we're going to be talking about today. If you have any questions in your live, please put them in the chat. We would love to answer them. And if you are joining us for the recording, feel free to also comment. I will be responding to those as I see them. So, welcome. My first question to you all is, what is your current what is something you are currently delighted about your flavor of ADHD?
That's a good one. I'm going to start just because I feel like I'm in the front row anyway. I am not diagnosed ADHD. I feel through experience and through just my own self-education that and having siblings is also very helpful to see how your genetics play out and how things play out for you, and as far as environmental and genetically. And I definitely know that my family is neurospicy in all the ways, and just have created this new relationship with understanding what ADHD is, and not needing a diagnosis to be able to see that the patterns that I have lived with has brought me to some clarity about not needing a diagnosis, but to be able to live a more delightful life by just identifying that we, one, live in an ableist society, and we come with all of our special qualities and skills and talents, and just, taking the reins of the ones that I'm particularly good at, and making a life around that, and delighting in that, just being able to identify that there is a way to have some kind of community acknowledgement of who we are by saying that we are neurodivergent or ADHD or on the spectrum. And that allows people just to be able to approach you in a different way, be able to approach you in the way that's just more knowledgeable. And I delight in that. My recent delights.
I love that. I'm very similar to Elizabeth. I do not have a diagnosis, but learning all of these things about myself, I would say that that in itself is a delight, is that not having to fit into a box and knowing that that's okay. And working with that has allowed me to learn how to connect to myself better and love myself better and see them as qualities and attributes that I can hone into versus try to destroy and change and make something different. And that has really allowed me just to step into my power, to feel more confident, again, to love myself and just really be able to connect with myself. Because before, a lot of those attributes that we would associate with ADHD or ADHD or any of those things was looked upon as negative or frowned upon and tried to change, that they were bad, that and so for a very long time I was working against myself. And for the first time learning about all of this last few years, I really feel like I'm working with myself instead of against myself. And that feels fucking amazing.
Yes.
Well, I am just kind of falling in love with the way I think. I mean, it's kind of fantastical. I have a hyperactive brain, and I always sort of knew I thought big picture. I could see things in totality before other people could, People had little nicknames for me. I had bosses that called me little things, like she's the canary in the mine. She'll see problems before anyone knows, and all these things. But now it's like, oh wow, like this is really special, and it allows me to get things done and be super creative on the spot. People are like so fatigued by jobs that I can just come in and just whoop, there it is. And so where some things are very difficult for me, and like so much so that it's like disruptive and traumatizing, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Other things are just a joy. And it's like, so I really love that about myself right now. It's just like leaning into that joy and trying to build a life where that's what I'm doing more of, it's just like utilizing those talents and just going and helping people with that skill set.
So I just got to say, like, neurospicy and fantastical are like two favorite words of mine. So I'm loving the vocabulary. But the thing that I'm taking delight in right now is, just bear with me a bit because I haven't even like fully formulated this understanding yet. It's kind of something that literally happened this morning. As Jess, as you know, I can't keep my ass quiet, and I'm doing a postgrad diploma in Islamic psychology right now, just because, and I'm almost through it. But there's a lot of us in the program who have ADHD, and we all talk about, being back in school and being in virtual school and all this sort of stuff. And so we were just talking about spirituality this morning, and like I feel like, the frontal lobe, right? If that's the part of our brain that's supposed to keep us here, right? Like on this sort of earthly plane, if you will. And it all works. It's just that, it's not stimulated, right? So all the parts are there and all the stuff happens the way it's supposed to when it's stimulated. But when it's not, like I feel, and like I said, I'm still working this out, but I really feel like that sort of block, if you want to call it that, has opened up the rest of my brain to like elevate and be aware of and be in tune with and be insightful of like a spiritual world that exists, an energy that's out there, that the ability to feel people's auras and energies, and all of that stuff happens because this thing isn't doing what it's supposed to do, and what it's supposed to do is keep us grounded in here, right? And I'm still working this out. Like literally, this was a conversation I had with a bunch of people at 10 o'clock this morning. So I'm still figuring it out, but I really think there's something to that.
That's awesome. I just don't think it's supposed to do anything, really. I just think we've evolved to be different. I think we were the ones running out. Our brains were out running and discovering and finding new things. Like maybe we were hunters, maybe we were whatever. We were out there doing that kind of work, and it's an evolutionary trait that is struggling currently in the industrial and information age. That's kind of my theory. And so yeah, it's really hard right now and in the systems that have been created in recent history. But I don't know, I think we're kind of baddies.
I think so too. I think we
ourselves.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that I think like we were the ones who kept everybody alive when the lions and the saber-toothed tigers were running around, because we saw the fire coming before anybody else, and we're like, oh, don't go there, right? And so without us, where would they be? But now we live in this world where it's, safer, if you will, or we're not in the same environment, and maybe I don't like to say things like we don't fit, because I don't believe that. I think there's problems with how the world is organized.
Well, who would you want to be with in a crisis? A neurotypical or an ADHDer?
Right?
Well, along those lines, don't you think that, we're created to be very unique, and in this system that we live in creates us to be the same. And I think that that's a really big area that we struggle. That's not how we were created to be. So we don't fit into that box. And so this allows us to be that one of one.
Yeah, no,
And
absolutely.
so I feel like we're just stepping into that or re-stepping into that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It feels like magical thinking, but what it is just like not standardized, not capable of segmenting and boxing things and creating like this industrial complex has made us want to replicate everything. We're going to replicate all these patterns to make it systematically easier for everybody. But that's not the way the world works. That's not the way the brain works. We have, things are connected, but things can also, nature thrives in the most demanding of situations. And I just feel like that makes us feel like, well, it makes me feel like I have a superpower. Yeah. I've been told
I agree.
times that I should go work for NASA because when there is crisis, I will MacGyver that shit together and figure it out.
No, humanity is not a franchise, right?
Right.
And so like as individuals, like yeah, maybe as a human race, there's sort of shared dispositions, but that it's almost like the individual disposition of every single one of us has been discounted. And and then I used to work in forensics. So I was in jails a lot. And the designers of jails designed them to look a lot like elementary schools, because the belief is that somewhere along the line, somewhere in that stage of development, something went wrong. And that's where these people, sort of went astray, if you will, right? And I think about elementary school, and what was elementary school about? It was about, a conformity.
Conforming.
Right. And not even, I mean, I wouldn't even say fitting in, but obeying more than any of that, right?
And if you weren't, you were outcasts.
Yeah, you were the weird kid, right?
Problem
Mhm.
child.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah.
And I started my career in social work, working in a child and adolescent ADHD program. And I would go in to talk to the teachers all the time, and they're like, "What?" The standard thing I would come out and say every time was, "We can't change the child. We need to change the environment." And that's not the
Exactly.
world we're in, right? That's not the space we exist in. So we got to break that shit down.
Yes.
And if you are all new joining us today, let us know what your questions are in the chat. And I am the neurotypical in the group. So rather than answering all the questions from my own personal experience, I might answer them differently. So the question of, okay, what do I delight in witnessing people with ADHD right now? Something that's really been fun for me to watch and witness is the way you all process information is incredible, because you're not just using your brain, like you're simultaneously using your brain and all of your senses in like this max capacity way that I am unable to do. Like I've been in rooms recently where I'm sitting next to somebody who's a neurodivergent and we're both reading the same thing, and I'm like up here and she's like already at the end of the page. I'm like, how the fuck did you read that so quickly? Like I am just on the second sentence. And whatever her, like the way you guys process information is just incredible. And why one of the reasons I love you all so much is because everyone thinks so differently. And so I can call you up and be like, okay, this is the thing that I'm stuck on. And it'll take you like 30 seconds to like something that I would have taken 2 weeks to try and figure out. You guys are amazing. Oh my gosh, we have people in the chat. Thanks for being here. Some of you, your friends, are all joining us today. Okay, so my next question to you all, what is a recent challenge you've had because of your ADHD or neurospiciness, or however you identify today?
I'll go first because this is something I'm currently struggling with, is that I have a podcast and I want to pivot to really hone into my ideal listener. Well, that required me to take a step back and reevaluate and redo some things. And that means I have to hold myself accountable for a lot of things because I'm on a break and doing all of those things behind the scenes. And I really feel like the accountability helps me, which is something that I've actually talked to Jess a lot about is that accountability. I think that that's an area that I know that I struggle in. Accountability is really helpful. I like body doubling. I like checking in, having accountability partners, because that is a place where, if not, my creativity, my perfectionism, I can just stay there for absolutely ever and never come out. And that's not what I want to do. I want to move forward, and that requires me to focus and not go down all of these pathways. So because I love creating and I love and I struggle still to this day with perfectionism and things like that, that the area is just focusing and continuing on when I have to pivot. So pivots are a little bit tough for me because then I can get off on a tangent or go down a different rabbit hole. So really holding myself accountable is a struggle. And I have to put a lot of things in place, safeguards, and set myself up for success.
Yeah, I love that. I appreciate that particular challenge. I struggle with perfectionism as well, but perfectionism to fit in a system. Like I'm supposed to be doing things a certain way as opposed to doing things my way. And because I think the biggest thing that I struggled with recently is just accepting that I can get a lot done in a short period of time. So I'll procrastinate till the moment that I know that, okay, I need to have this done at least 3 days in advance, or I need to have this thing done for this meeting. And I will procrastinate until I know, because I'm also very intelligent, know what is the capacity I can push it. And then I'm hyper focused and, absolutely completely able to get everything done in time and look like maybe I've prepared over months to do it. And instead of hating on myself for not taking months and telling myself I would have done a better job taking months or weeks or hours to do things when I know I can do it in a short period of time really, really well, I've just accepted that I'm going to do things in a short period of time really well. And people are just, will continue to be amazed. They don't need to know the background story. They don't need to know what's going on in the back of the house. I just get it done. And I have learned the challenges have been learning to accept that of myself, because I keep wanting to put myself in the same category as everybody else, where, oh, this project is going to take 2 months and it's going to be methodical and need all these parts. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, I got this kind of figured out and I'm going to wait till I need to do it. And being okay with that, because I've always executed in a way where it's never been a struggle. It's never been something that has been something that I've wished could be different about me. I just need to be okay with accepting that that's the way that I work. I personally work. Yeah, so it's a challenge.
That's huge.
I think acceptance is a huge challenge, right? And accountability is, but being accountable to myself, that I know that what I'm capable of, that was the first biggest challenge I had to overcome.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's threads along everything that you all are saying so far that I really feel. Those things are like supremely real to me. Something that that I think maybe we all share is the fact that ideas don't stop coming to you, right? And I'm consistently, the being creative and the ingenuity of these thoughts, and I have, like, there's voice notes that I leave for myself at 3 in the morning, or the yellow stickies that are on the wall and all that sort of stuff. And I'm back in school for the last year, and I'm running my practice, and there's so many I want to expand my practice and hire some associates, and I have 1,000 different ideas for groups, and I have half of a PowerPoint done for this workshop, and the truth of the matter is that as much as these ideas are coming to me, I need to just slow down and be like, all right, you know what? I'm done school in a month, and at that point, I can take on the next step. But there's that need, and I mean, to speak to what you were saying, Elizabeth, is that yeah, I know I can get a lot of shit done in a short amount of time. But right now, it's accepting that even though I can get a lot of shit done in a short period of time, that shit requires a lot of thought, a lot of planning, and a lot of process. And I just need to say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to get that stuff done now, but I'll get to it, right? And it's just quieting that. And so, a lot of mindfulness has been helping me to just slow that down. And I think also there's a bit of shame that was involved in not doing the things that I feel like I should be doing, or that I have colleagues who are doing, or and yeah, not at all. It's just that it's being able to. I'm pretty good at slowing down. I like vacationing. I can slow down, but like yesterday, my wife and I played hooky, and we had a beach day, and so I'm totally good with that. It's just being able to slow down the ideas to say, okay, one at a time, or 3 at a time, but not 10, right?
Nice.
Yeah, I think for me, I got diagnosed after having early menopause. And I think when the estrogen left, it really changed how much energy I had. And so, the science is catching up to menopause. We're finally really studying it. And it just totally changed my ability to keep up with my hyperactive mind physically. And it was a real identity crisis, because I could turn to my spouse and say, I'm going to start a business and then get my real estate license and then pull it off. And suddenly I just had all these unfinished projects happening, and I was drowning. So it was sort of like the time blindness became very difficult to deal with for the first time in my life. And let's see. So like when I was younger, it was always about the rejection sensitivity. That went away with menopause, which is awesome. But now it's time blindness, it's short-term memory loss, it's people-pleasing behavior that doesn't really make sense. And what I'm battling the most really is making sure that now that I have limited energy, that I'm focusing on the things I want to focus on, right? It's about focus. So you have a hyperactive mind. You can do kind of everything by middle-aged because you're a maniac that has learned all this stuff and had all these experiences, and everybody wants to tap into all these weird things, And so then you're like, okay, what am I actually going to be able to pull off? And so burnout has been a big, big issue, ADHD burnout. My hyper focus as a young person was all about human behavior. I worked in domestic violence shelters, rape crisis programs. That was what I did with the first 20 years of my life. And that fascination with human behavior moved into marketing, which is nice because it's a little different, but it still uses those same human psychology skills. I went and got my master's degree in new media, taking my bachelor's in community psychology and parlaying it and doing something a little different. But, I just don't have the energy that I did when I was a crisis worker, right? I just don't. But my mind's still very, very hyperactive. So it's like, for me, the biggest challenge and the thing that can be really crazy is the burnout. And the burnout, the focus, and just like really the time blindness. Like I can like look up and I have no idea how long it's been, whether it's time blindness on forgetting to pay a bill, time blindness on project management. It can be really hairy. And I was much more on top of it when I was younger. I definitely think menopause makes it harder.
Yeah.
I love that. I have a question if it's okay, Jess.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I hear us all talking about kind of the same thing. And I'm curious to see how everybody else kind of works with it. I've heard a little bit, but as far as that focus and the time blindness, as Summer was saying, and just really being able to have more steady versus crash and burn, right? And so, as Elizabeth was talking about, yeah, younger, that's how I operated is I procrastinated and I got everything done in like the last minute, right? That's just how I operated. And I can operate that way. But as Summer was saying, do I want to operate that way? And that's kind of where the area I'm in is, do I want to operate that way? I have a family and I have all these other things that I want to do and these responsibilities, and life is fucking crazy. So do I want to leave all of these things to the last minute? So I know, Elizabeth, you were saying that you kind of just own that and that's how you operate. How does everybody else operate? Because I'm in this space of like meshing them together. So using my superpower, but also um delaying it as well. So not putting everything in at once. How do you guys work through that?
So I literally had a client earlier today that I was talking to about this. Um, um, so like, strategically I do certain things. I create an environment for myself. So, I'm in my office right now. You can see there's some pictures there and there's a picture there and there's a window here, but the blinds are at an angle that I can't see out. But that wall behind my clients where I sit is blank. It's very intentional, right? I got rid of the Apple Watch. I think it's a great tool, but it's like I tried to remove distractions is one way that I help my focus by doing it physically, because my brain's still going to go to 100 places, but that's okay as long as they're not physical things. And just around the scheduling and all that sort of stuff, um, you know, I do a lot of workshops on self-care, and I tell people all the time, that I wasn't this guy for most of my life, but now I think planning and scheduling is like the sexiest thing there is, right? So,
That has
so
saved my
yeah,
life.
yeah, but I use tools like, I don't know if you guys use mind mapping software. There's this fantastic thing called MindNode if you're like an Apple person. And I use that because it allows me just to spit out ideas, but then click of a button, it changes it into a to-do list that's broken down. And so one of the things that I've given myself the I've given myself the grace to say, I'm only doing one thing today. That's it, right? But not just that I'm doing one thing. When I do the one thing, I'm rewarding myself, right? And it's really important because our brains, we require that stimulation and that dopamine hit, right? And if, you know, I got all my I had some papers to do and I got all that stuff done. So yesterday, I took off and I hung out at a beach for the day. And I left my phone in the car, right? So like that reward piece is really important for me. And I think planning as much as I possibly can. And plans don't always work out, but I think that's an important one, right? And it all comes from self-love. Like that's the right. It's when we don't stop, when we lose sight of the love we have for ourselves, I think that's when we start to sort of burn that candle too much at both ends. So I don't know, that's my take on.
I love that.
I think also just giving grace making sure that you check in and allow yourself to make mistakes, be the recipient of someone else making a mistake. I love scheduling, I love planning, but I am a person that will overburden myself with making plans or scheduling. I will get all of the schedulers, I will have all of the things, all of the equipment to make me stay on task, and that will eat up so much time that I actually don't get anything to do done. And so I asked myself, what purpose is it serving and how far I need to take it? So giving myself grace to, and I agree that rewarding the reward system is essential. It's essential, saying I am going to complete this task today, or I'm going to complete this task by Wednesday, and then rewarding myself for having done it early or getting it done on time, just providing lots of opportunities for wins and not overburdening yourself with all the systems that don't serve you. Here's an ADHD thing. I used to not put away my laundry for months because I would not put it away correctly, because I wanted to put it away color categorized so that I could then make my life easier by being able to go to my closet and go, I need red today, or I need this color, and I need that. And it's like the system did not serve me. So I had to learn the lesson to give myself grace that I'm going to be that person who has clothes in their bedroom on their bed, or be put away messily, because that serves me than sitting there feeling bad that I can't make that system work for me anymore. And I also think it is lack of executive function with the lack of estrogen when you are perimenopausal or menopausal. That's a huge thing that goes unrecognized for women. Here we are hyper productive when we're in our earlier years, raising our kids, going to school. I mean, how many women do you know are pregnant and getting their PhD? Like all that estrogen flowing, we're like, we've got this down. We're hyper productive. But then we get to this stage of our lives and we don't give ourselves grace and we don't reward ourselves for our easy wins. And I think that those two very important things need to be put into place and actualize for ourselves to be able to be the people that we want to have this superpower and be able to exercise and use it in all the ways. Little wins, lots of grace, reward systems, and getting rid of the systems that don't work. I'm perpetually late, so I tell people, okay, if I'm 15 minutes late, I'm on time. And I try to set an alarm for an additional 15 minutes every time. I don't do back-to-back meetings anymore for that reason. It's not going to happen. It's understanding yourself, understanding what works for you, and not overburdening yourself with the systems that didn't serve you before.
Can I just say, Elizabeth, you talked about getting rid of systems. And something that I like say and believe a lot is that it's yeah, absolutely get rid of the systems. But the other thing is that if clothes are on the floor, on the desk, or like in my case on the Peloton, right? Like that is my system.
That's right. That is the system now. That's the system.
I'm like, I'm really hard on clients about one thing, which is the language we use, right? And we always use this language where we talk ourselves down. And I'm like, no, we really got to flip that, because there's enough people that have been doing that our whole lives that we don't need to continue and support them, right?
Yeah.
It's time to support us. But yeah, no, you go with your systems, girl. Like you do that. 100%.
Thank you. And I love that. I think we need more of that. It's like, wait a minute, what I heard did not sound like it was actually doing the thing you said you were going to do, is give yourself grace. What I heard was that you wanted to like steer yourself into a direction or into a place that feels like you're compromising. No, it's just accepting the new system, just accepting the new way of doing something. So yeah, thank you for that. I love that.
Absolutely.
Well, I think for me, like, one, I love my pharmaceutical help. I know it's not for everyone, but for me, it's been super helpful. And then I have a overnight one too, that's a focus drug. That's a non-stimulant that has really helped with insomnia. So I'm better able to cope when I have good sleep. And so that's been life-changing. And then I really love having gone through some cognitive behavioral therapy. That a lot of work was done around like transitions and like some of the resistance I was having around transitions, such as going for a walk. I love going for a walk, but like interrupting my work to go for a walk was just like unending me for some reason. And having a psychotherapist that was ADHD was everything I needed, because he was really able to like ask me the questions to get to what was really going on, because I was very perplexed by it. I thought everybody thought that way. Um, and then having Jess as a coach for 6 months, who is neurotypical, was also very helpful, because we were able to kind of look at what it's like being an entrepreneur, a business owner, and how to like break down project management or systems within the business, and get a workflow that really works without like what most coaches tell you, which is like you need a different planner or you need this budget software or these things that just aren't, they're not going to work for us, right? We've done all of those things. It's another distraction. We're further behind. And that was just like such a blessing. The other thing that was really cool was just changing things up. Like I heard on a podcast to get an armoire instead of dressers. So all the dressers are gone. Like my sweetheart is also neurospicy. I'm diagnosed. He's not, but I think he's probably autistic. He thinks he's probably on the spectrum autistic, and I think a little ADHD. So, now we have an armoire and the things are in piles inside of it so that we can shut it, get a minimalistic vibe, which helps us feel calm. But also it's just like the way it is in there and the piles that make sense to us. So no more drawers that just close and go into I don't know where. But when we are sitting in the space, there isn't just like chaos everywhere. So we got rid of all spaces like that. We got over our shame around needing someone to come and clean the house and do the deep cleaning. Get over it. Like we are actually like kind of weirdos, and that is like so taxing to keep on top of. And we're just not going to do it anymore because we have these other gifts. We're both crazy creatives that are really successful in our professional careers, and that's just what we're going to do. Other things like I rent all my clothes now. Managing clothing was driving me insane. And you hear Steve Jobs or Barack Obama say, oh, I have 7 suits, or, Barack Obama had 7 suits so he could focus on his presidency. Steve Jobs said, I only wear these black, turtlenecks like these Japanese, leaders do to keep my focus and to help me minimize my decision making. Well, that would drive me insane because I love novelty. And I want fashion and I want it to change every 5 seconds. So you can imagine that like this whole, and I also work in like events and marketing and fun stuff. So people take pictures of me and then that dress is dead to me. And I also have an ethos around not wasting, right? So I was like, what do I do? So I rent my clothes. I pay $88 a month, which was about what I spent on clothes annually. And they ship me clothes and that's what I wear for a month, And it was just like this, like streamlining my life like this. They're sustainable clothes. It's just that scratch I have for novelty and shopping. And I get to pick them out and it's all automated. And it's just like these little adjustments have totally made my life so much easier. So that time blind, like just like things kind of spiraling out of control, in terms of like just basic household management or, whatever, all this like cluttered, like life admin isn't just like so gigantic that it can't even like move, you know, that paralysis that sets in. So those are just some of the little practical things that came about.
I love that because Jess was at my
Love
house.
that.
Jess was at my house this weekend, and she walked into my kitchen. She goes, "This is great. None of my cabinets have doors on them anymore." And I didn't know why I did that. I just needed to do that. And I've always had an armoire, and I didn't know why I did that, but I now like it all the puzzle pieces are coming together, and I really appreciate this conversation for that. It's like, oh, these things that are not, you know, not everybody does them. Why do I feel compelled to do them this way? Because they serve me. Yeah, I love that. I'm going to start renting my clothes because I love a good fashion show as well. Like, let's bring it.
Oh my goodness. I love you all so much. Okay, we have a really interesting comment with the people who are watching us live. And someone said, I think we're all a bit ADHD. And I would love to hear your reactions to that or responses to that.
So for me, I don't know, just learning everything about this and kind of breaking out of the system, I feel like ADHD, and this could be debated, but this is just my take, is that ADHD is just who we are in our natural state. And the system has tried to create us into the same. And so for me, the ADHD is just you coming out, breaking out of the system and the rules and the supposed to be's, just allowing yourself to really tap into what works for you. That's just what I've seen.
So if someone asked me that question in, I don't know, 2010, 2011, I'd say hell no. These are the diagnostic criteria according to DSM, and you know, da 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 da. And part of it too was ADHD was still new to me at that point. I didn't know what was going on in my head until much later in life, and so I held it very personally. And I was like, no, this is my stuff. You guys don't fit in here. Today, I don't care. I don't care what, I mean, I have a diagnosis because I worked in a mental health department at a hospital. Like I had easy access to psychiatrists. So I mean, yeah, of course I went down that path. But like today, I don't care. I think what's important is, are we all a bit ADHD? I mean, I don't think that's I think we all have moments of impulsivity or moments of emotional dysregulation, or moments of working memory challenges. Like we have these moments, and if that's what you want to say, being a little ADHD is, sure. The problem that I have with that statement at times, though, is that people will use that statement to delegitimize and take away services and supports for the four of us, at least when we were kids, when we were little, when we were young, when we could have got the supports, statements like that take them away, right? And that's just a systems thing, and that's where I have a problem with it. But other than that, call it what you want.
Yeah. I love that you call it out. Yeah, because things can be situational, right? We learn that in psychology. Like I am not bipolar, I am not personality disorder, but there are situations that trigger me and make me respond as such. And in that situation, I could easily be identified as something, but that is not who I am all of the time. That it is limited to that situation. So I think saying that we're all ADHD does take away, and it can create an opportunity for people to either dismiss it or not provide resources for people who need resources. So being being inclusive feels great, but let's do that and not what am I looking for? Here's that ADHD brain.
Minimize it or
Yeah. So yeah, I don't want to delegitimize the diagnosis by saying everybody has it. Just know that we all have similarities that create moments where we feel connected. And if that's what that statement means, then I'm on board.
I mean, I think that the culture has become more distracted with technology's evolution and us requiring butts and seats more. And so, and I do think we all have ADHD behaviors as a species. I mean, but the more I learn about how like brain scans work, the more I think about my own father who passed away at 51 years old from addiction, and he had little post-it notes everywhere, and how much he used alcohol to try to self-medicate his really intense disability. And that research is coming out that 20% or plus of the prison population meets the diagnostic criteria. I think we have an opportunity, I think, to like really deal with a lot of social problems by using this category to get at the root of the problem. And I don't want to lose that. I do have a problem categorizing things. I'm ADHD. I hate categories. You ask me to rank my pain, I don't know what to tell you because everything is subjective to me. But I also do know that when I got dropped off for school in kindergarten, I mean, I cried the first year. My whole childhood was depressed until I was 18 because it was torture. And some kids that had ADHD, especially the male kids, they acted out. I just internalized it because I was socialized female, and it was really awful. So I talked to other people and they're like, oh, wasn't it fun to be a kid? And I'm like, no, it was awful. So, I mean, a lot of people carry a lot of pain from having these symptoms, and it's not light or fun. And so I think some people get really offended when they hear people say that because there's a lot of trauma from having that life. But and then there's people who have very severe symptoms and people who have less severe symptoms. So and I believe that the ADHD is a superpower, and some people feel like that's diminishing, the dark or hard sides of ADHD. So I do think it's complex, but I do know from talking to people that I'm really different in the way I'm wired. And that comes as a very big surprise to me. And I love talking about it with neurotypical people and be like, really, you weren't like that? Really? You didn't feel tortured through all of elementary school and like you wanted to die? Or I can't focus on games. I don't like games. It's the worst thing you could ask me to do. I hate baby showers. I don't get to do a lot of normal things. And so, yeah, I don't think everybody is in that category, really, if you really break it down.
Do you think it has to do with just the way that we learn, right? So like the systems are not set up for diverse learning, right? It's only set up for one or two ways of learning. So if you learned different, if you take in and you create different, then you don't fit into that system. For me, wouldn't you say that created that traumatic experience?
Oh, sure.
Right?
If I went to Waldorf or something, I probably would never have been depressed, right? And in fact, I graduated from alternative high school, an alternative undergraduate, and I went to a New York university that was known for interdisciplinary study. Everything had to be interdisciplinary to get through it. There's no way I would have gotten through traditional. I can't pass a test if my life depended on it. So I had to go to non-testing institutions, which are extremely rare and extremely expensive. And the other thing is how expensive the ADHD tax is super crazy too, because, we spend a lot of money to kind of find workarounds so that we can have the same experiences that neurotypical people have, such as an education. So yeah, I mean, you do a lot of working around just to like be normal, even though people find us successful and vibrant and fun. If you really sit down and talk to ADHD people, they have been like really spinning a lot of plates just to get from A to B in the neurotypical world.
Yeah.
Is that testing the same for all of you? I know it's the same for me. I have never heard of anybody else struggling in that area, so I'm curious.
So I can speak in Ontario anyway. They so ADHD is it's it's challenging because a lot of psychiatrists don't like administering ADHD meds or family physicians because they're stimulants and they control substances and there's monitoring of all of that stuff that's happening, especially since like fentanyl and OxyContin and all that stuff. But the other piece is that it's not financially lucrative, at least in Ontario. So in Canada, we have public health, right? So it's not lucrative here for a psychiatrist to do an ADHD assessment because it takes 15 minutes, really. I mean more than that, but it could be done in that way. So a lot of psychologists do them, but they'll require as part of their process a full psychoeducational assessment and full mental health workup, and then they'll charge $5,000 for it. And yeah, between $2,000 and $5,000, that's kind of the going rate. And then it's challenging, but I mean, so both my kids have ADHD and they're very comfortable with me talking about it because that's the house we live in, and so I'm not outing anybody right now, but my kids got they have a dad with ADHD who worked as an ADHD therapist in an ADHD clinic. Like, they had all the resources, but a lot of my work in this that I would interact with the school system, it's night and day. Like, I can speak for the sort of Toronto area. It is night and day, the resources. My daughter was telling me just literally, she has exams coming up, and she was literally telling me just a few days ago that one of her friends, he writes the first page of a test on one day and in the resource room, and then he gets to do the second page of the test the next day, again in the resource room, and he gets extended time for it. And there's a lot of people who are like, that's ridiculous, and why would you get, well, why do we not want people to succeed, right? Like, we've come to this place where we're starting to understand, and there's still a lot of pushback, but I mean, compared to when I suppose when we were in school, I think it's night and day difference. I mean, I spent, so high school is 5 years here, or it was when I was, and I was there for 6.5. And I'm glad I did, because it helped me get to university and take 5 years to do my 4-year degree. But then when I knew about my ADHD and I go back as a social worker, all of a sudden I'm top of my class and handing everything a day early. Like, how did that happen, right? So yeah, I get where you're coming from, though.
I'd love to hear how more systems, or how ADHD and the recognition of a larger population of people having ADHD is changing the way we do things. And I give this quick example because I appreciate the testing example, but job interviews, right? Nobody wants to be put on the spot, like an aha, I got you kind of thing. What is so wrong with providing the questions that you're going to ask in a job interview before the interview? How am I going to game the system by just being given a little bit more time to let my speedy brain slow down and have a more prepared answer? I can give you all of the information you need because they're subjective to my experience. What you want to know is, am I capable of doing this job? So providing the questions prior to a job interview seems so simple. So how else do we find ways to make opportunity accessible, education, jobs, accessible to all people? and so and people are, I can hear the backlash. I can already hear it. But the recognition of that is it just levels the playing field. Somebody who's neurotypical will have the questions beforehand, just like somebody who's neurodivergent. They can, there's no way to game that system. It just feels like they're barriers to entry.
Yeah, I've been talking a lot, so I'm just going to share this and then shut up. But we're talking about system changes in the United Kingdom. In their court system, every individual who is up for a first offense, whatever that first offense is, gets an ADHD screener, because they know now that a lot of these are crimes of impulsivity, and we know that once you have one interaction with the justice system, you're going to have more. And a lot of times, these are just an impulsive thing. The person's not a criminal. They don't meet all the criminogenic factors and whatnot. And so there's a clear way the system's changing. So I mean, it's happening, I suppose, just maybe not at the pace that we would like, right?
Right. This is why with children and adults are considered different, because the impulsive nature of being able to reach a certain amount of maturity, so why would, if we make that special arrangement, why would not in other ways?
Yeah, and ADHD people end up as entrepreneurs in high rates or freelancing. I can put a website out and show you my work. You can hire me. It's easy. Doing a job interview, no, like that is very difficult for me. So, and it's so interesting because my skill set is revered as a freelancer or as an entrepreneur. People are clear what my skills are and willing to give me money to do the work. And then people within institutions are frustrated. They want to work with me. And so they'll say, hey, apply for this, but I can't get past that process. Because when you ask me a question, I can't focus in that way. And no matter how much practice happens. So it's so interesting to me that's the measure. But it does limit your opportunities. It really does. I mean, there's a lot of stability in a regular job. There's like retirement and medical insurance, and this life is definitely a lot of work, right? To run your whole own show. But one thing that is really good is having an assistant. And if you have ADHD, I've thrived the most professionally when I either was given one in a more traditional job or had some kind of virtual assistant, because they can round out the areas that you struggle in. So, that's a lot easier to construct when you're calling the shots. So that is one gift from designing your own business in your own life.
Does anyone have a hard out? I want to be mindful of time.
No.
Okay. Well, while I interrupted the flow anyways, why don't you all tell us who you are, what you do, and any shameless plug you want to share with the internet.
I'll go first.
Great.
I am Amber McCrea. I'm a therapeutic nutritionist, and basically what that means is I do holistic nutrition and also emotionally focused therapy coaching. And I mesh those two together to get to the root cause and work with the whole person, because it isn't just one piece about us that affects us. It has to do with everything about us. So I work with women who are wanting to learn how to connect to themselves and others after trauma, because trauma's a bitch, and learning how to reconnect with ourselves and our loved ones can be really scary and tough. And having somebody walk alongside you that has experienced it, we were talking about that earlier, that experience I think is so important, especially when we are working with people who have gone through trauma and severe trauma and things like that. So that's what I do. I have a podcast, Connection Over Perfection, I'm mainly on TikTok, and we do art days, we do mental health days, and my mom and I do a mother-daughter healing journey where we use emotionally focused therapy and kind of work through our mother-daughter wounds as an example for ourselves and for everybody else. So it's really authentic and raw because it's just, we put it out there. I think it's so important that people on this journey of learning about themselves and others, they see the hard work and the vulnerability of the process. A lot of people get on and they just see the outcome. And for me, I need to see the process. I'm like, is that, is that real? Is that authentic? Like, that just is all beautiful and rainbows. And I know that shit's not real. So that's basically what I do. I am part of a podcast connection network. And all of that information is in my link tree and stuff. I'm hooked up with some amazing, amazing other podcasters, and we do a lot of mental health stuff.
Thanks for sharing, Amber.
I'll go next. Mine is not nearly as long. I have had, I love that I could segue this with this subject, and I really appreciate being invited to have this conversation. I have lived a life of code switching and being able to normalize. And through aging and maybe being perimenopausal, that executive function and my ADHD is emphasized as things are a little bit more challenging. So getting out of typical employment and being working for organizations, this is now going on my 12th year as a private consultant doing management consulting. But I am the person that they bring in, people, organizations, usually small organizations, bring in to do the things they don't understand how to get done. They don't even know where to start. So I have worked with clients such as Nordstrom's all the way up, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, to small mom and pops. Locally Rational Unicorn Law Services put on a small business conference in April, as well as working as the facilitator and project manager for the Portland Metro Chambers Leadership Portland program, bringing leadership education and civic responsibility to our professional leaders. But I am capable of doing much more than that, have done strategy, transitional management, all the things, and just thrive being able to have created an environment in which I do my best work. So that's me.
Amazing.
Okay, well, I'm Summer Carrick, summercarrick.com. And let's see, I love to break down complicated businesses and causes and do media campaigns, websites, social media around those things. So some examples might be, like, I work for gender-based violence researchers and faculty and help them get their research described in a more popular way so that people can actually take their papers to practice. And I also love working for the hospitality industry. So, because that's food and yummy and eye candy and glitter and glamour. So I love to work for hospitality and restaurants and luxury brands too. So I can get a little bit of academia and a little bit of glamour in my life. And so that's what I do. But mostly I just love connecting with people. I'm a social media lover, and I'm on Instagram as @somelady, SUMLADY.
She is worthy of following. Her Instagram stories are like the best thing ever.
Stories are very snarky and snide and funny.
Yeah.
I
I
love
like
that.
to laugh out loud to my own stories.
So before I share anything, I just want to say that I just got a message from a fellow friend who's a therapist and also is a neurospicy who just said she just got off of the Wayfair website looking at armoires. So
Yes.
if you didn't think so, this
Great.
conversation has reach. So
Out
there
of
we go.
sight, out of mind is a real thing for us. If you
No,
put it out of
100%.
sight, you'll never see it again. So don't do it.
No, I hear you. Yeah, I thought that was important to share. I'm Jawad Bhatti. I am the lead therapist at Positive Outcome Counseling and Therapy in Toronto, Ontario. I do in-person and virtual work. I do group therapy. I see couples. ADHD is my area of specialty and interest, but that's not the only space that I work in. And yeah, I really like to help people. I tell people all the time that I'm not the answer guy, I'm the question guy. And so I like to help people ask. I like to ask people the questions to help them figure out their answers. That's what I love to do. And yeah, that's me.
Yeah. And I'm Jess Bose. I'm an ADHD coach, and I offer a lot of different programs, but the one that I want to talk to you all about today is something that's not finished, but I'm in process of. So just like drop in the little seeds here for y'all. It's called the Transition Toolbox, an ADHD Survival Guide. You guys all mentioned it earlier, like transitions can be really difficult for ADHDers. And one of the things that I've been practicing with my clients is every time I start a session, we do a transition. Well, I call them transition exercises. They might be mini meditations, or they're not things that take a really long time, but they're things to help center and bring you to the space that you're in. And I find that every time I do that, it changes the whole dynamic of everything. So I'm creating a mini course that people will be able to purchase online to help them start practicing little mini transitions in their life, in their world, to move from thing to thing throughout the day and make it easier. And Armoire. I was like, there was another thing I wanted to share. I actually went to, I was at an event on Saturday where I got to meet some lovely humans, but one of the people that I met is, works in an architecture firm, and they want me to come in and talk to them about creating neurodivergent spaces, because they might be building for, schools or children or like whatever. And so I'm really excited to be able to be in that space. And that was one of the things that I shared with her, is like making sure, like, out of sight, out of mind is the thing. So having all these cupboards and things that are opaque is not going to be helpful to anybody who's neurodivergent. And so whether it's completely open or if it's glass or whatever, to be able to see through and see what's in the space. That was like the first thing I shared with her. So I'm excited for that opportunity here in the near future.
Congrats.
Thanks. Okay, so there are a lot of folks who might be getting a diagnosis or realizing that they have ADHD but are not choosing to get a diagnosis. But what is like one thing that you would want to share with somebody on their journey of learning about their ADHD? What is a good something that you a kernel of wisdom you would want to leave with somebody?
Thing
No,
that pops into my go ahead.
just know thyself. Life's so much easier. So, I mean, your relationships get better when you know how you work, and then you can communicate what you need and you can ask for what you need, and you like, it's just so great. So I just say, don't be afraid.
Yeah, kind of along those same lines. And everything that we've talked about today is really that connecting with self. And that, if you feel like you need the diagnosis, go ahead. If you feel like you don't have to. Like, it's okay. And giving yourself permission to do whatever the fuck feels right for you is so huge. And really just getting away from those supposed to be's And I mean, I say this and I help all my clients do this, but it's something I still struggle with, right? I think that I will always struggle with this in some area. But really just, like Summer said, is being connected to yourself. Like, it's okay, whatever feels right for you. And I think that we've all said that, really, whether diagnosis or not, it's just learning how you operate and being okay with that. Like, if you want to change your system, the way that you do things, cool. If you don't, cool. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. It only matters how it feels to you and how you can operate at the highest possible you that feels good.
Yeah. I would say get rid of the one thing I would support more of is a diagnosis. There's no stigma. This is not something that means there's anything wrong with you. It's just a way to understand yourself, adding to what Summer and Amber have said, just a way to understand yourself a little bit better and understand the whys, So there is no stigma. There's a diagnosis, no diagnosis. There's no stigma. So go forth, be adventurous, learn more about yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I think along the same lines as well is that, know thyself is so important. But I think what's equally as important is communicate thyself, right? So too often we feel and we hold, and that just doesn't work for anybody. It doesn't work for you, and it doesn't work for the people around you. So when you feel, express and communicate that, right? It's so important. Whether it's feeling of shame or whether it's feeling overwhelmed or whether it's feeling I'm not sure if I should get a diagnosis, like express and communicate that. I think that's one huge thing. And the other thing I would say is just, two words that come up in my practice all the time is consistent versus persistent, right? And we live in a world where consistent is the thing, right? And I'm like, persistent. It's if just in the last year, I've gotten back to the gym like 5 times, right? That's huge. Because all the people who've been consistent all year, they only got back to the gym once. So, right? So I think it's important just to remember that when you have ADHD, you have that ability to be persistent because that idea is there. So don't hate yourself for not being consistent when you are being persistent. So that's my that's what I would leave people with.
I say this all the time. Consistency is overrated. It just is. And one takeaway that I have from listening to you all today, there's this sense of learning to trust yourself that is key. All of you have, I know some more of your stories than what you've been able to share in the limited time that we have today, and knowing some of your stories and then on top of what you all shared today, like that is what you're settling into, is this like, I'm trusting myself. And so maybe the system doesn't work, but I'm not broken. Maybe this can be really challenging for me, but I'm going to test something to see if it works. And again, if it doesn't, I get to tweak it and polish it and figure out the system that does work, or recognize I actually already have a system. It just doesn't look like a system to other people. And I just get to accept that that's part of who I am. And that's how I'm going to do it. And it's fine. And so this learning to trust yourself is an element that I have been talking about for a while now, because I know that's a lot of what I help my clients do, but it's really fun to see it like actualized in you guys. And obviously it's not a like, I trust myself 100% every day. It's a journey, and that's something that you guys are moving through. And I loved the open conversation you all had with me today about the struggles and the realness of like, yes, these are challenges, but also look at these amazing things, and I'm settling into myself. And I am looking forward to my 40s because I'm like, look at all of you and how fucking badass you are in yourselves of like, oh, it's not like I feel like we strive as people to like arrive, but it's not actually arriving. It's like settling into who we are and trusting that and trusting the process. And there's something magical about you four in particular, about being in that space right now in your lives, because you are super self-aware and you've done a lot of work in personal development and who you are and super conscious humans. And so it's been really fun to just witness you guys chat today. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Appreciate you.
Having us in your space.
Yeah. And thanks for being an ADHD coach.
Thank you.
Yes.
Very helpful service.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks for bringing us together. And I have 3 new people to follow on social media now, clearly.
Exactly. Yes.
Anyone who's watching, I will make sure I put the links and things for any of these people that you connected with that you want to talk with further. I'll make sure that their information is below. And if you want to be on the show, please contact me. I love having new guests come in and chat and have this real conversation about what it's like to have ADHD. Thank you so much for being here.